Check, check. 1, 2, 2, 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
I need two more, but not right now. They'll be here at 7:30. Feel free to move my cup if you want. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lexington Candidate Forum for Lexington City Council Districts 1, 2, and 6. Our forum will begin in approximately 3 minutes. At this time, we ask you to silence your cell phones. If you would like to take pictures this evening, we'd ask that you do not engage in flash photography. I'd like to invite you at this minute to look around you and find the nearest exit. There are exits on the front left and right, and there are several exit doors behind you. The bathroom is directly across the hall from the back door exits inside the gymnasium. Again, please silence your cell phone, and the forum will begin shortly. Thank you. Welcome to the Lexington Fayette Candidate Forum for Urban County Council Districts 1, 2, and 6. On November 8th, Lexington Fayette County voters will choose a mayor, city council members, and judges, among other positions. This election comes as the nation chooses U.S. senators and representatives in the midterm election. Kentuckians will also be voting on 2 constitutional amendments. One, to decide if the legislature should have more power. The other amendment, 2, to decide the constitutionality of a woman's right to choose in Kentucky. Elections always have consequences, but this year the stakes are particularly high. Your votes will determine the politicians who make the policies on the cost of living, reproductive rights, gun violence, public education, healthcare affordability, environmental responsibility, Supreme Court appointments, and the future of democracy. These elections will determine how we deal with community safety, land use issues, housing affordability, gentrification, and city partnerships with minority businesses. Community safety in Lexington is on the forefront of many minds as the city experiences record numbers of shootings and killings. City officials have instituted new offices for violence reduction and crime intervention. Video cameras are now monitoring neighborhoods to help solve crimes. And this all comes as the police force is facing staffing challenges, and American society is re-examining the role we believe police should play as the first-line operators in the quest for community safety. Lexington is the 57th largest city in the country, with a population of more than 320,000. That number is increasing by approximately 3,000 to 5,000 people each year. That population growth is outpacing our ability to build new homes and apartments, pushing housing costs higher and higher. The average price of a home in Lexington has increased by $30,000 since 2021. City officials are working to build affordable housing units and have instituted an affordable housing fund, but some see these moves as just a Band-Aid. Lexington's growth plan is focused on infill development, or building within a circle called the urban service boundary. This plan means new development is limited to spaces inside New Circle and Man of War. Downtown, these developments push up against historically black and brown neighborhoods, affecting the property values. Some argue that expanding the urban service boundary would allow for more homes and apartments to be built in more places, thereby bringing down property costs. Others say expanding the boundary would eliminate green space and disturb the character of Lexington. The debate to expand the boundary or not to expand is figuratively on the ballot in November. Lexington is one of the most diverse cities in the state of Kentucky. There are more than 186 languages spoken here. More than 85 languages are spoken by children in the Fayette County public school system. Lexington city leaders have shown a commitment to improving diversity by opening an office of diversity and inclusion. But some argue the city leaders need to do more to put their money where their mouth is, specifically by increasing the number of city contracts that go to Black and minority-owned businesses. The city has a goal of giving 10% of its business to minority-owned firms. But Lexington's ethnic minority population is more than 25%. Advocates argue Lexington's goal should be more in line with the ethnic minority population. Lexington voters have some important choices to make close to home. Tonight, we hear from the individuals who want to take on the issues facing Lexington as city council members. We'll hear their ideas and learn if they are up to the task of leading Lexington. Tonight, they'll answer the tough questions and share their ideas for helping Lexington to navigate the future. And now, please join me in welcoming our forum moderator for the evening, Mario Anderson of Spectrum News.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mario Anderson, as you heard, and appreciate that introduction and for the applause this evening. And I'm your host, moderator for this evening, and happy to be here so that we can all have a discussion on various topics affecting Lexington and our city here. And we'll be hearing from the candidates in just a few short minutes about several issues surrounding the Lexington City Council District races 1, 2, and then 6. And then as you heard in that introduction, I work with Spectrum News 1, Kentucky's only 24-hour cable news channel. And I am our morning anchor, so I wake up bright and early every day at 2:40 in the morning. And I'm at work by 4 and on TV by 5 a.m. And we do the Kentucky news, and we cover a lot of issues and topics that matter to people across the state, but also here in Lexington. But then also I host a Sunday morning public affairs program called In Focus Kentucky, where the same thing every Sunday I talk with various elected officials across the state and talking about issues impacting the Commonwealth. And so you can tune in for that on Sundays at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. And also, lastly, you can connect with me on social media as well at Mario Anderson TV. So with all that being said, enough about me. We'll talk with the candidates that are here tonight. And also, before all that, we've got some housekeeping and information we want to share with you all. We want to first thank the sponsors that are helping put on this event tonight. There are a lot that are involved, including the Black Faith Leaders of Lexington and Vicente and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, also Beta Gamma Omega Chapter. And then tonight's forum actually is the second in a series of 4. And we also want to take this time to thank the forum series sponsors: Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Alpha Beta Lambda Chapter, the Center for Prophetic Activism, the Kentucky Community Action Council, Civic Lex, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, and the John Rowe Chapter of the National Bar Association. So let's give all those sponsors a round of applause. And then, as you all are fully aware, this evening you're going to be hearing from the Lexington City Council District Race 1, 2, and 6 candidates. And then before we get started with that, we'll actually go over the rules for this evening. And the questions for tonight's forum will cover a variety of issues, including community safety, city land use policies, minority business development, affordable housing in our city, but also public safety, crime, various topics like that. And the questions that you'll be hearing tonight have not been provided to the candidates beforehand. And each candidate will they're going to be giving a 2-minute statement once we get started. And they also have a 2-minute closing statement. Also during the forum, each candidate will have 90 seconds each to answer each question. And then all candidates on the panel will be asked to answer the same question before another question is actually asked this evening. And then the order in which candidates are asked to respond to questions will alternate throughout the forum, and there may be several follow-ups that I may ask based off responses that you all say. And then following the initial answer period, I also, again, as I said, may ask those follow-up questions to one or both candidates, or we may have extended time as well on certain topics. So with all that being said, also we want to let you all know that at the end of the forum, the candidates will be given an opportunity to ask their opponent one question if they'd like to each other. So they're a little different there for you all. But now with that being said, we'll actually meet the candidates running for 2nd District Council. Shayla Lynch, here to my left right here. And her opponent, Josh McKern, could not be here this evening. But then also running for the 6th District Council, we've got Denise Gray and Charlie Rowland. And then later this evening, we will be joined by the candidates running for 1st District Council, Rasan Berry and Tana Fogel. And at this time, we will begin with the 2-minute opening statements, and we'll first start with Shayla Lynch, followed by Denise Gray, and then Charlie Rowland.
Thank you so much, Mario. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shayla Lynch, and I'm running for the 2nd District City Council seat. I first want to thank our forum sponsors for hosting this event tonight, and thank you so much for the invitation, because you didn't have to invite me, but you did. So thank you so much for the invitation and for the chance and opportunity for you to get to know me, hopefully more, and why I'm running. I believe in service, advocacy, and partnership. Those are just words on my campaign flyers, but they're ideals that I live by and that I've lived by my entire life. I believe I was put on this earth to serve others. Service is my heart's joy, it's my passion. And I've done that for over 17 years in this community. Whether I was tutoring at William Wells Brown Elementary School, teaching junior achievement at Middlethorpe Elementary School, or serving on the Neighborhoods and Transition Task Force for the mayor. I've worked diligently in this community and passionately to make this community better for everyone, because we all deserve to live in an equitable community that serves each and every one of us fully. So I want to serve my neighbors in the 2nd District and the city as well, because I want to serve you and work with you to make this city and this district the best it can be for all of us. Advocacy is what's in my blood. I am a lawyer by training, but I love advocacy, and I've been doing it since I was a kid, to be pretty honest. And so I've been able to have the blessed opportunity to advocate for many Kentuckians and many people in Fayette County when it comes to their housing needs. I've been able to advocate for survivors of sexual violence in this bluegrass region, and now I'm so excited to be able to advocate for literacy and education in our community as well. And I want to continue this advocacy work with you and advocate for the needs and issues and concerns that you and your family have here in the 2nd District. And then I want to partner with you to get the work done, because I definitely believe that I cannot do this work alone. It's going to take all of us working collaboratively and partnering together to get the things done that we need to get done to move this city forward, so that it does, so we are serving all the Lexingtonians that live in our district. Thank you for coming to the beautiful 2nd District. You're sitting in the 2nd District right now, so I'm so glad this forum was held in the 2nd District. But I want to in advance of the end of this forum, I'll go ahead and ask you for your vote.
And that is our
November the 8th.
time.
Thank you.
We decided not to have any cowbells or whistles, so I'll just be very, we'll start next with Denise Gray.
It's on. Hello, everyone. My name is Denise Gray. I'm your candidate for the 6th District City Council. I was born and raised right here in Lexington. In fact, I grew up in the 6th District. I am a proud graduate of Bryan Station High School. After graduating from Bryan Station, I attended the University of Louisville, where I helped to found its national champion all-girl cheer program. After graduating from U of L, I attended the University of Denver Stern College of Law. After graduating, I came home. Instead of practicing law, I found my home in Fayette County Public Schools with our next generation of leaders. I worked in Booker T. Washington Intermediate Academy, Harrison Elementary, Bryan Station High School, and my last school was Crawford Middle School, which is housed right in the 6th District. My candidacy, the focus of my candidacy is on safety, transparency, accessibility, and community. As you all know, we have a safety issue, not only in the 6th District, but in all of Fayette County. The 6th District is the home of the first 2 homicides of 2022, and it is also the home of the 2 youngest homicide victims in Fayette County. The neighborhood that I grew up in was safe. Parents felt it was okay to send their children to the parks to play. That is no longer the case right now in the 6th District. In our public parks, Kenilwood Park, Constitution Park, Mary Todd Park, we have criminal activity that is taking place in our parks. And this is not okay. We have real issues in the 6th District. We are facing trauma, job loss, drug abuse, and we need a real leader to represent the 6th District. We need a real leader who knows our district and understands the people in our district, and I am that candidate. I'm ready to do the work.
2 minutes right there. We'll
Okay.
we'll continue. We'll continue this
Thank
evening with
you.
more. We'll continue. We'll now introduce Charlie Rowland.
Thank you, Mario. And thank you to our forum sponsors tonight. Thank you for First Baptist Church Bracktown for hosting us. And thank you for letting me be a part of this important community conversation. My name is Charlie Rowland, and I'm the candidate for the 6th District City Council. I'm glad to have my wife here in the audience with me tonight. She's a teacher at Glendover Elementary, where she teaches English as a second language. The one member of our family who's not here tonight is our daughter, Nellie, who just turned 18 months this past week. Nellie's the reason I get up in the morning, and Nellie's the reason that I'm running for this city council seat. I want to make Lexington the best city possible for her to grow up, and I think that I have the experience to help make that happen. I've spent most of my career in public service, most recently in Frankfurt at the Cabinet for Economic Development, where I'm proud to have been part of the team that set records in 2021, both for new jobs announced and for capital investment announced. Prior to that, I was an assistant attorney general in the Office of the Attorney General's Office of Consumer Protection, where I got to work on behalf of Kentucky consumers, Kentucky small businesses, in particular our seniors, to protect them from predatory companies that try to take advantage of them. The most important work I did there was I was part of the litigation team that brought 8 lawsuits against the drug manufacturers and distributors that have flooded our streets with pills and have fueled the ongoing opioid litigation. I want to use my experience at the Cabinet for Economic Development and as an assistant attorney general to tackle what I see are 2 of the biggest issues facing Lexington: economic insecurity and a strategy for economic development that works for the city, that's cohesive, that helps everyone, and to focus on public safety. I think public safety is going to be a big issue tonight, and we can't look at it simply through the lens of policing. We have to look at what are these underlying causes.
Is the time right there. We'll get back into all that here in just a few short moments. And he mentioned public safety, and that's the first topic that we'll discuss with all 3 of our candidates this evening. We'll start first with Shayla as we talk about the big idea, the topic of public safety, but crime, violence, and just last night, Lexington experienced its 5th police officer-involved shooting this year. That's actually the 3rd this month. And also over the weekend, Lexington tied its homicide record at 37 people who have sadly been killed this year. So as a council member, if you're elected, what are some strategies that you all would want to implement to make Lexington safer? And we'll start with you, candidate Shayla.
Thank you for the question. We are living in some very unfortunate times, and I think that in order to work on this directly, that we have to put some more funding towards the needed areas in order to do that, such as making sure that our youth have access to mental health services, ease of access to mental health services, because they are hurting. They are dealing with these traumas every day. I've worked in trauma for a few years, and you have to marry that mental health services to help wrap around the individual that is suffering. I think adding some additional staff to One Lexington would be wonderful. That department's doing some wonderful things in our community, but that's a staff of 2.5 folks, and that's not a real remedy at this point. So I'm definitely in support of giving them the resources and the staff to really help them continue to do the great work that they're doing in our community. I'm also very supportive of working directly with our nonprofits that are already doing that work to work with our communities and our neighborhoods. There are many, many folks already doing the grassroots work to try to stem the tide, and we should be working in partnership with them, not against them. Maybe sending them some funding so they can continue to do that work and partner with the city to make sure that everyone is being addressed and feels safer in the neighborhoods and the communities in which they live. It's going to take all of us partnering together to work collaboratively to solve this issue. We're in a reactive stage right now, so we have to simultaneously work in the reactive stage and in the prevention stage as well. So it's going to take a lot of work to get that done, but I'm 100% sure that we can get there.
And we'll have candidate Gray next with her comments on how she would strategies to help make Lexington safer.
And I guess I will stay seated since Shayla did. So, as I mentioned earlier, the 6th District has had a lot of issues. We had an officer shooting not too long ago. We've also had other incidences which have not been reported. In order to understand our increase in violence and crime in Lexington, earlier this year, I joined and enrolled and graduated at this point in the Lexington Police Department's Citizen Police Academy, just so I could learn more about what our police officers do, so that as city councilwoman, I will be able to adequately speak on behalf of the police and our community. On top of that, I have also been having meetings with stakeholders, from mental health to those dealing with transient housing, to those who are dealing with drug abuse issues. I believe the increase in crime is symptomatic of a larger issue. Coming out of the pandemic, it was already increasing prior to the pandemic. Working in Fayette County Public Schools, I saw the increase at Crawford Middle School prior to COVID. And some way that we can address this, because we have so many groups that are doing the work. However, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, which is an issue. If all these organizations that are doing the work of crime prevention, which is not actually the police department's job, their job is reactive. And we need to put more stake in being proactive and going to those issues. The city has actually decreased funding for our youth. Our youth have 0 activities to do in their district, in the 6th district especially. Park and Recs no longer has sports in our district. If you would like to participate in sports, you would need to enroll in a private league or go across town. That is not possible or feasible for the people in my district who are working 2 jobs. Parents who are working 2 jobs, they cannot possibly ensure that their children are taken care of and preoccupied. So if all these organizations came together and there's actually funding in our budget for our youth, that right there would actually help the situation. And so that instead of being reactive, we can be proactive. Instead of putting a Band-Aid on the situation, we can stop it before it happens.
And Candidate Rowland, your comments on that.
There's no doubt that we're facing serious issues when it comes to public safety. You see it all around, whether it's downtown, people experiencing homelessness, whether it's in our schools, where calls to mental health counselors were up 300% last year in Fayette County Public Schools, or in our own families and neighborhoods. Because I know that there's not a person in the room who hasn't dealt with somebody who's got caught up in the criminal justice system, who's been dealing with addiction, who's been dealing with mental health issues. And until we solve these underlying causes, we are going to be in reactive mode, and we need to do a better job of reaching out to those people who are struggling. We need to look at public safety not just through the lens of law enforcement, but what can we do to help these people who are continually struggling, because it's not helping somebody to put them in jail, to have 2 weeks of counseling. We need to have constant public services that are reaching out to people to kind of help lift them up. And I think that focusing more on addiction treatment, on mental health, on economic insecurity will help figure out some of these root causes. Our law enforcement agencies are dealing with a staffing crisis, but the thing is the budget keeps going up, and unfortunately the numbers of homicides keep going up for 3 years in a row. So we can't just look at it through the lens of policing. We need to look at it from a holistic approach, and what other public services can we bring together, because there are great groups out there offering these services.
Well, and speaking on that note, there's been a lot of discussion over the last several weeks, several months about the topic of group violence intervention, or GVI, and whether or not this type of initiative would do enough to address the root causes of violence. So we'll ask each candidate what their thoughts are on that particular topic, and will they support implementing that or discussing it more if they are elected onto the council. And we'll start with candidate Rowland, and then we'll come back down.
Yes. I think that group violence intervention is certainly something that we need to look into, because we are in a crisis. And the unfortunate thing is we've set ourselves into 2 different camps. You're either pro or against it. We need to have everything on the table. And I think there's certain aspects of group violence intervention that kind of go to what I was talking to earlier. They go to those root causes. They help lift people up who are trapped in the criminal justice system and haven't been able to find their way out. And so we can't just say, no, this hasn't worked in certain communities, we can't do it here. Or yes, this is going to be the do-all, save-all for our community. We're in crisis right now, so we have to have everything on the table. We need to try out different things, and I think that group violence intervention has some great tactics that could work here in Lexington.
Candidate Gray.
Thank you. So when Bill brought up GVI, and we've heard the current city councilman for the 6th district mention it repeatedly, I've been meeting with actual cities who are doing GVI, because what I've noticed is that the numbers aren't necessarily there, but a lot of stats stop in 2016, and a lot of areas, Columbus, is new to them. So I personally, I love numbers, I love data, I love research, but I believe that right now, as someone who has had family members murdered and in the criminal justice system, and having students who have committed crimes that could have been prevented if they had the therapies there, I believe that we need to put all hands on deck and not throw anything off the table. If we believe that each citizen of Lexington matters, then we need to be 100% behind saving young lives and saving lives that don't have to end so soon. So I'm like, put it all on deck and let's figure it out.
And Candidate Lynch.
Thank you for this question. I think we need to look at everything, to be honest, because there's not one solution to resolve our issues here in Lexington, because they're multifaceted. So I'm definitely want to look at many different avenues for resolution for our crime issues, and it's going to take studying and looking at the research and the data and implementing and trying different things. And we may try something that may not work, and then we try something and we tweak it and try something else, because while we're experiencing high rates of crime as many other cities are, I think that we are still a very unique city. And so we're going to have to tailor whatever solution we use, whatever program or programs we use to fit the unique needs of our city. And it's going to take looking at our neighborhoods, partnering with our neighborhood associations and homeowners associations, working with law enforcement, and partnering with social service agencies that provide care to be able to stem the tide of this crime increase that we're seeing here in our city. It's affecting all of us. Even when it hits across town, it's still affecting us on the other side of town. So I definitely think that I would definitely look at GVI, as well as many other programs and modalities that are being used around the country that are seeing success rates, and then again tweaking it so that it makes sense for our community, because I think we are very unique, and we want to make sure that whatever we implement will work for everyone.
Thank you very much for that, and we'll also talk too about the Lexington Police Department, and the leaders there have been very outspoken about that domestic violence has been highlighted as a cause of the recent violence and murders in Lexington. So as a council person, what would you all each do to support domestic violence victims in our city? And we'll start with you, Candidate Lynch.
I have been fortunate enough to work a lot with our domestic violence programs here in the city. I worked at Ampersand Sexual Violence Resource Center for almost 3 years and worked hand in hand on the Domestic and Sexual Violence Prevention Coalition here in the city to try to come together around the table with many community partners to try to prevent this from occurring. And we got a lot of great work done on the prevention task force. And I've also advocated on the state level for programs for survivors of domestic violence and sexual violence. And I think that a wonderful model that I would like to see grow and continue is where law enforcement partners with these social service agencies that are already doing the work, because we're the experts in that work. When I was the executive director of Ampersand, we had a really strong partnership with local law enforcement, and they would call us when they had a survivor or they needed some assistance in training. And we regularly provided training to law enforcement agencies to make sure that whenever they encounter and work with a survivor, whether it be domestic violence or sexual violence, that the survivor gets the care, the trauma-informed care that they need in order to be able to, during that interaction with law enforcement. I've been in the hospitals here in Lexington. Hospitals have to call the Rape Crisis Center when a survivor presents in the emergency room. And I've been there holding hands with the survivor while they are being interviewed with law enforcement. And I would like to think that those interactions were better because we were in the room, because advocates were in the room, because social service agencies were represented in the room with that survivor. So I think it's a matter of partnering with law enforcement, partnering with the city to try to work to stem the tide. They are our nonprofits such as Greenhouse 17, such as Ampersand, are the experts. And so we need to bring those experts in the room and to the table so that we can work together to try to prevent this from occurring. Because during the pandemic, we saw a huge rise because many survivors were housed with the people that were harming them. So, and it's only continued to grow. But I believe that we can resolve that issue if we work together.
Candidate Gray.
Repeat the question.
So domestic violence is the topic, and as a council person, if you're elected, what would you do to support domestic violence victims in the city of Lexington?
Okay. Domestic violence is actually, that issue was the purpose of me going to law school. I know firsthand the experience of living in a household where domestic violence does take place. And I know from experience the impact on children and on spouses. Domestic violence is gender neutral. So we have social services that are doing the job. We have police that are come after the fact. But our domestic violence crimes are the most deadly. I believe at this moment, 13 homicides that took place out of this large number were due to domestic violence. But the issue with domestic violence is that cycle, going through, and how do you encourage someone to seek help and to realize their worth and understand that they don't need to withstand it. So therapy is definitely necessary, but that only gets involved once the court system and the criminal justice gets involved. And so, but the issue comes in on my frame of mind is the children who go to school, who are acting out. One way that we educators would figure out what was going on in a home was when the children act out, became angry, because typically when someone acts out or becomes angry or fights, it's symptomatic of what's going on at home and not feeling safe and secure. So each of us has a role in understanding and being involved, and that's part of my issue about building community. Lately, due to the pandemic, we've been separated. When you see something, you say something, right? So besides the criminal justice system getting involved in social services, I believe it's up to the regular citizens of Lexington and also the place of our legislators to create policy that can aptly address those things.
And then candidate Rowland.
While I was in the Attorney General's office, I got to work firsthand with the Attorney General's Survivor Council. And there's nothing more inspiring than to hear these survivors' accounts of how they were able to get away from these terrible situations. But you also have to hear about those situations, whether it was spousal abuse, whether it was as they're a child growing up, a close family friend, a relative, and you realize how pervasive these situations are, and how helpless these people feel to get away from these situations. And it's unfortunate that sometimes the first interaction they may have is with law enforcement, where they're made to feel like they're doing something criminal. We need to break down silos with the social services that are here in Lexington to look for those red flags, to look for people who are in despair, because oftentimes they're in situations where they can't be their own advocate. They need a friend, they need a family member to speak up for them. But we need to have a safe space for them to come out and know that there's people here willing to talk to them. We need to look not just at spousal abuse or child abuse, but boyfriend, girlfriend, living in the same house, living down the street. We need to make sure that we have protections under the law, and we're working with the court system to have equal protection no matter what the relationship is. We need to work with law enforcement, work with our judges, work with the county attorney's office to make sure that we're not putting people back in harm's way. And it's a constant relationship. It takes years to overcome the trauma of this abuse. And so we just need to be advocates, and we need to make sure that people are getting the attention and the help that they need.
And then this will be our last question about public safety, crime, and gun violence of this time frame, but then we'll move to other things. But I want to ask you about police reforms, and if you have any specific items that you'd want to advocate for, or a policy or ordinance that you'd want to introduce. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about the banning of no-knock warrants, things like that. But is there any specific police reform measures that you have in mind if you were elected to the council? We'll start with candidate Rowan first.
Where I'd like to see more money spent is in the areas of mental health and addiction resources. I mentioned earlier the opioid litigation that I was part of at the AG's office. Those cases are starting to settle, and Kentucky's set to get $480 million over the next 18 years that has to be dedicated to opioid and drug abuse. We need to put that money to help our public safety and to bring another aspect of not just law enforcement, but helping people overcome the addiction that they're suffering from. Because so many people, whether it's crime, whether it's economic insecurity, until they get over these underlying causes, they're just going to keep going through the system. And we're putting our law enforcement in a terrible situation where we're not expecting them to just enforce the law. We're expecting them to be firsthand health interventionists. They're dealing with people in crisis who don't know how to get out of the cycle of addiction. We need to have the resources there, and we need to put the money there to help these people overcome addiction.
And candidate Gray, do you have any specific policy measures or ordinance proposals that you'd look to introduce if you were elected related to police reform here in Lexington?
Yes. Joking. Okay, so with our police, typically when something happens in another part of the United States, our police officers feel the brunt here. Lexington Police Department is not New York Police Department for sure, 100% not. However, due to PR reasons, we have had a large number of officers who have retired, who in 2015, the City Council passed an ordinance moving from 20 years to 25 years for pension. Currently, we have officers, instead of waiting out their 25 years, they are leaving their profession right now, which has left us in a hole, in desperate need for new recruits of the police department, in which, due to public relations, it's all public relations, you all, people aren't applying. And that is a problem. So I would like to work on ways for the police department to do a better job at presenting at what it does, so that it can be a better look for our community. Also, it will do a better job in recruiting more qualified applicants for our police department. Because right now we are feeling the effects of years of what I call neglect and perhaps bad decisions, which have all led us to today. Hopefully, when elected on November 8th, I will be able to set the record straight, and so that we can get right back on board.
And candidate Lynch.
Thank you. This wouldn't be a particular ordinance that I would propose, but I think we need to rebuild trust, because I think we've lost trust in our law enforcement. I think in several communities, due to some legitimate reasons, that the trust needs to be rebuilt. So I think that that's something intentionally that I would like to help facilitate when elected to City Council, is to rebuild trust with our law enforcement and our communities, especially our communities of color. I think transparency will go a long way in doing that we need to be transparent, that the law enforcement officers need to be transparent and be a part of our communities, working with our communities. so that we can rebuild that trust. I think transparency will go a long way, and I'm very supportive of several of the initiatives that the Commission on Racial Justice and Equality have proposed along those lines to help to rebuild that trust and to add more transparency to that agency. And then lastly, I think that what will help rebuild trust and to perpetuate more transparency is partnership building with the folks in the community that are doing the work. Coming together to partner with social service agencies, with nonprofits. I really think the models in some other cities where they have social workers that go on non-emergency calls is working great in several other cities. So having those kind of out-of-the-box thinking and programs to creatively solve some of our issues when it comes to crime would work here in the city as well. So I think if we can restore trust, that there's transparency, and more folks will be willing to come to the table to work with law enforcement. And so those may not be ordinances that you can legislate, but I think that those are things that we can definitely work on in order to make our community a better community.
We will now transition to the topic of affordable housing here in Lexington, and a lot of people are fully aware about rising rent costs in the city have forced many people to actually live outside of Lexington and then commute to work. So what can you do as a council member to bring more affordable housing to Lexington? And we'll start down the line, and we'll go with candidate Rowland first.
The first thing we need to do is we need to figure out a dedicated revenue source to grow what we're sending to the Affordable Housing Trust. $2 million isn't even a drop in the bucket for what we need for affordable housing here in Lexington. But even if we doubled that to $4 million or tripled it to $6 million, it's still not even a drop in the bucket to meet the needs that we have here in Lexington for affordable housing. What we need to do a better job as city leaders, as city council members, is advocating for Lexington both on the state and federal level. Over the past 2 weeks, the Kentucky Housing Corporation, which is the state agency charged with advocating for incentives and programs for affordable housing around the state, has been accepting applications for the $4.5 million allocated at the state level for new affordable housing projects. Over those couple of weeks, there were a total of 0 projects submitted for Lexington. So we're not just getting a bite at the apple, we're not even getting to look at the apple that's there. We're leaving money on the table because we're not advocating at the state level to say, here's Kentucky's specific needs. Every 2 years, they have a housing plan for the state where they set aside this money to go directly for affordable housing. And we haven't shown up as a city. I mean, we're the second largest city in the state, and there was 1 plot in the top 35 identified in the state for affordable housing projects in Lexington. And so until we're able to adequately leverage these opportunities at the state and federal level, it's going to be difficult for us no matter how much more we're able to put from the city budget in the Affordable Housing Trust. So we need to be better stewards. We need to help the developers because this is a priority for our city, but we just need to do a better job of finding other funds outside of the city budget to help leverage the money that we're putting forward.
And Candidate Gray, what can you do as a council member to bring more affordable housing to Lexington?
It's not a priority for our city. The proof is in the pudding that affordable housing has not been a concern for many Lexingtonians nor our city council. There's talk about expanding the service-urban boundary. Throughout the years, throughout the decades, we have expanded the boundary, but yet we're here. When we had the Bluegrass Aspendale housing in East End, when it was torn down, those homes that were built in Equestrian View, there was an income qualification. You couldn't make over a certain amount in order to apply for housing there. If you go to purchase a home there, that is no longer the case. That income requirement has somehow dissipated. So affordable housing, as we know it, is not a priority. There are several ways that we can put affordable housing as a priority, and that goes along with zoning. We have developers that would like to expand their urban service boundary. We can include in zoning regulations that a certain amount of housing needs to be allocated for affordable housing, and they can set the requirements for that. There are other means within our boundaries, such as investing in mixed housing and dwellings, where you would have the business on the bottom and the housing on top. However, what we have noticed here in Lexington is that developers are building. They're building housing, right? But there's one thing that they're missing: speaking to the community about what the needs are. So there's housing that is being built, but nobody wants it because they were not involved in the housing, such as the mixed I see his head shaking. It's the mixed dwelling housing. There were a number of those that were built in the downtown area. According to our Division of Planning, they are not being successful. However, it's due to according to planning, it's due to how they are targeting their target audience. They were marketing those housings for families. You cannot have a family of 5 in a 2-bedroom condo. It's not efficient and it's not wise. So in the future, developers, there need to be ensure that all people are at the table when decisions are being made about housing regulations.
And we'll talk too about that here in just a few more moments, but first we'll have candidate Lynch share her thoughts about that topic here in affordable housing in Lexington.
Thank you. Housing is my passion. I did it for 15 years and worked in the housing movement for 15 years, and I loved every minute of it. And that entire 15 years that I worked in the housing industry at the Lexington Fair Housing Council, we've always had a housing crisis. I always have had an issue of housing affordability for our citizens here in Lexington. And I've enjoyed the work that I was able to do on the Neighborhoods and Transition Task Force and on the Gentrification and Subcommittee for the Commission on Racial Justice and Equality. And we put forth some great recommendations that I stand by, that I'm still waiting for to be implemented. And one of the things that I'm passionate about that I think will create more affordable housing here in our city is making sure that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund has a dedicated stream of funding. Throwing money at it here and there helps, but it doesn't aid in longevity. And we're having to look forward. We need to keep looking forward and not only dealing with a crisis now, but continue to look forward. And having that dedicated funding stream for more affordable housing to be built in our city is going to be crucial. There has to be a dedicated funding stream. I also think that we have to look at the gentrification that is happening in our city. We have to name it and own it and claim it, and I think our city has failed to name it, own it, and claim it. Even though I co-chaired the gentrification subcommittee, the city still has not named it, owned it, and claimed it. There has to be reinvestment in our neighborhoods that the city has disinvested from, and that has happened. It's on paper. I've seen the records of how the city has historically over time disinvested from some of our communities, lots of communities of color. And so we need to reinvest in those communities so that housing can remain affordable in those communities, and we can work strategically and intentionally about stemming the tide of gentrification that is occurring throughout our city and in our neighborhoods as well. And then I think whenever you think of affordable housing, you always think of single-family homes, but that's not always everybody's dream. Some folks are just happy being renters, and that's what they want to do for their family. That's best for their family. So making sure that we have good landlord-tenant protection laws here in the city will go a long way. We have some good ones now, but it's been a long time since they've been revised and updated, and they could use a review and some updates and some amendments. I'm very passionate about adding source of income as a protected class in our fair housing laws here in the city, because I've seen it time and time again where fellow neighbors are treated differently because of their source of income or are denied housing because of their source of income.
And
so
time there.
Okay, thank you.
giving a little flexibility in the time, but still keeping it around that 2-minute mark for each candidate. But we'll continue the conversation and actually we'll start with candidate Gray here. Do you support requiring affordable housing units from residential developers in exchange for zoning variances or tax abatement or even maybe tax credit subsidies? And we'll start with you and then we'll go back around. And I can repeat do you
No.
support requiring affordable housing units from residential developers in exchange for zoning variances?
I do. I believe right now with our housing that we need to figure out the best plan to ensure that our developers are building housing that is affordable and for our community. So that is definitely, it's a yes for me.
And then candidate Rowland, do you support requiring affordable housing units from residential developers in exchange for zoning variances?
Absolutely. And I think that's the one area where we really need to have more leadership in Lexington. We go through this comprehensive plan process every so many years, and we say that we want to drive infill development. We say that we want to drive reinvestment in these historically disinvested neighborhoods. But we haven't put together a tangible plan for what that looks like. We've kind of had these pie-in-the-sky ideas of, oh, well, there's no place else to go, so you're going to have to do infill development. We need to tell developers, we want you to build here, we want you to invest in this neighborhood, we want you to have X number of units, and you're going to put aside X number of dollars or X number of units for affordable housing. We need to be very, very direct, we need to be very clear and very purposeful in getting those units in Lexington.
And candidate Lynch, what about you? Do you support requiring affordable housing units from residential developers in exchange for zoning variances?
I say yes. I think that's important because having worked in that industry for so long, if you don't require it, it's probably not going to get done. So that requirement does make it mandatory that those set-aside units have to be set aside for folks for housing, affordable housing. And I think that it's important for folks with different incomes, different backgrounds, be able to live together because that's community, right? We're all living together and we're bringing our full selves to our homes, to the table and all the intersections that we are. So I think having those set-asides are very important because I feel like if we didn't mandate it, probably wouldn't get done as much as it needs to get done.
There's been a lot of conversation about the topic of the urban service boundary. We had a little video that gave some background on that. The urban service boundary limits growth in Lexington to infill development. So do you support expanding the urban services boundary? And we'll start with you, candidate Lynch.
I think that is a very complex issue, and I'm ready to look at it intently and look at what the pros and the cons of expanding it and how it'll affect our community. I am very worried about our communities of color in the urban core being squeezed out and displaced. And so I think that we need to make sure that we're having a solution that is remedying that, as well as we have our neighbors that have farms on in the outer parts of our county. Those farms are feeding us and helping us to sustain. So I think I'm for an equitable solution that will help both our urban core and our residents in the city, and that will be equitable as well for the folks that are living on the farms as well, because we need both. We need everyone at the table. And so I'm definitely for making sure we have a solution that is equitable for everyone, and I think that solution can be found.
And candidate Rowland.
I'm not in favor of expanding the urban service boundary at the current time. I think that it's a good process that we have, that we keep on looking into it. We see where the pressures are. But like I was saying earlier, it's disingenuous as a city for us to say we like this urban service boundary when we want to drive infill development, but we're not putting our resources, we're not putting our efforts towards what that infill development looks like. If we expand the boundary, that just means that the current residents of Lexington are going to be paying to build out the infrastructure for residents who are currently not in our city. And that's all with bonded money. So as we see the interest rates go up, our dollars are squeezed further and further. It's going to be very expensive if we do want to expand the boundary to pay for residents who are not currently in the county. I think we need to use the tax base that we have already to drive infill development purposefully, to have some leadership for the city as to what we want that development to look like, how we want affordable housing to be built, how we want to have options for everyone in Lexington to live, and make sure that we're not forgetting anyone. Because if we focus our eyes looking outside the boundary, then we're going to lose sight of the people and the neighborhoods already within our community who need help, who need investment, and who need these resources.
And then candidate Gray, do you support expanding the urban services boundary?
Well, the city is growing. On Polo Club, we have 2 hospitals, a school that are being built, which means we have a number of people who will be moving to Lexington. Where are they going to live? What's the plan? I understand not wanting to expand the urban service boundary because, like I said earlier, we've expanded the boundary, but, and I like saying this, the proof is in the pudding that expansion doesn't necessarily mean affordable housing for us. However, we have to understand that if we do extend the boundary, that we must be extremely strategic, because once we expand, there's no way to go back. So that includes including zoning purposes to ensure that we are meeting the future Lexington and the president at the same time, ensuring that we have a sufficient number of affordable housing, zoning regulations in place. But if we are not to extend the boundary, we have so much infill that needs to be rezoned to be built properly to meet our needs. I've heard a lot of talk about the largest plot of land in Fayette County to build is the Fayette Mall parking lot. And I want to understand, how is that feasible for our population? Who wants to live in the parking lot of Fayette Mall? I guess someone that loves shopping, huh? But so we need to be real about presenting ideas about, if we're going to build in the infield, let's be real and let's not use fiction and make presumptions on where people want to live. Let's talk to the people in our community to see what's best meets their need.
There's been a lot of discussion, too, about a long-standing city program called PDR. It's the Purchase of Development Rights. Though the land is not zoned to be developed, the city's Purchase of Development Rights has paid out $80 million to landowners for their development rights. What do you know about the city's PDR program, and then what's your stance on it? We'll start with you, candidate Lynch.
Thank you. From what I know about the PDR program, that it made a lot of folks a lot of money, but the goal was also to make sure that folks in the urban community, in the core, also got those financial advantages as well, and that didn't happen. So I don't think the city upheld its end of the bargain by making sure that that funding was going both ways in our city, not just out in the county, but coming into the city as well. So there needs to be some steps to make up for that that money not going where it needed to go, so that we could continue to grow as we needed to with the PDR program. I know it's been a long-standing program and has been able to preserve a lot of land for the city, but it needed to have done equitably, and it was not. And so we need to make some strides to correct that issue.
And candidate Rowland, what's your stance on the city's PDR program?
It's certainly a unique program, and I think it demonstrates our commitment as a city to acknowledging that we live on a special place on earth, the Bluegrass region of Kentucky. The problem is, and you mentioned it earlier, we've dedicated $80 million to the PDR program, and we've dedicated $24 million to the Affordable Housing Fund. That's not a good look, especially when we're facing an affordable housing crisis. Where we spend our money demonstrates where our community's priorities are. And right now, we need to prioritize making sure that everyone in Lexington has access to affordable housing. We are experiencing growth. We need to plan for where that growth needs to happen, and we need to make sure that our budgeting and our spending as a city prioritizes those people who need the housing, who need social services, and not just the horse farms. Yep.
And then candidate Gray.
So, like many things that our city has proposed and regulations that we have, it has not been equitable. We have many of our black and brown persons, many of those who live poverty level or below, working class, who have been ignored by these programs. The priority has not been on this group of people at all. So it is important with these regulations that we have is actually to stay true to what we say we're going to do. And if we stay true to doing the work, no one will be left out like they have been.
Let's switch to another topic, topic of homelessness in the city of Lexington, and get your responses on what you would do as a council member to address homelessness in Lexington, but also work with the population that are experiencing homelessness in our city. And we'll start with you, candidate Lynch.
Thank you. I unfortunately see this problem that we're having in our city every day. I work at the Carnegie Center, and we have a lot of unhoused folks that frequent our building and that frequent Gratz Park where we're located. And I engage with them and talk with them because they're humans and deserve dignity as well. But it is a growing problem. It's only gotten worse due to the pandemic. I think that we need to make sure that we are making sure that folks that need it have access to the necessary mental health services, and being willing to wrap our services and resources around the individuals that want it, because not everyone does, but those that want that help, and try to get down to the root of it. We don't know why folks are unhoused all the time, but it could be a lot of different things, such as loss of a job or income instability or family issues. You never know. But we definitely need to wrap our arms around it specifically and strategically and intentionally. Our Housing Advocacy and Development Office is a new office, one that we championed on the Commission for Racial Justice and Equality, but is severely short-staffed and two people cannot handle our housing and homelessness issues that we have in the city. So we need to staff up that office so that we can provide the necessary supports. Our homelessness office has done great work, but it's going to take more money and dollars to be able to help folks that are unhoused, to provide them with the resources and the access that they need to provide stable housing if that is their desire and if that's what they choose. And just realize that we have to treat everyone with dignity, and that these are human beings and they just are unhoused right now, and that they still deserve the care and concern of everyone, no matter whether you have housing or not. But we definitely need to add more staff to be able to care for the growing problem in our housing advocacy and development department with the city, because I think that if we don't directly address it, that it's going to continue to grow.
And candidate Gray, how would you address homelessness in Lexington if you were elected as a council member?
Well, the 6th District has had an increased number of transient people within our neighborhoods. This is due to the Catholic Action Center being moved to its new location in Eastland. In my neighborhood alone, Rookwood, many points this year, and especially during COVID, we had a tent community farm in our neighborhood, unbeknownst to many people, an area that was flooded out and the homes that the city had torn down. We had a community that was living there. And after speaking me being who I am, after speaking with them to just get their viewpoint on why are you here? Do you need resources? And what I was told from these individuals is they're fine where they are. So the issue comes with, how do you help people who are fine being where they are and being unhoused? How does the community deal with that? Because it's a misconception that everyone wants to be in a residence. We have resources in our city, as I said, the Catholic Action Center and numerous other organizations that are doing the work to ensure that our unhoused population has all that they need. So what do we do? In my neighborhood, persons were caught, crime increased. We had individuals breaking into our homes, into our cars. We had individuals that were stealing from the speedway and somehow running down the street and hopping through our backyards, running from the police. This is something that never happened in our district prior. So there's no one solution to this. It's how do you help people who don't necessarily want to be helped and who are fine where they are? And how do you reach those who really want to have the help? How do you reach those different populations all at once?
And candidate Rowland.
It's incredible talking to the Office of Homelessness Prevention of the work that they're able to do with a staff of 2 people and the relationships they're able to create, because they basically have personal relationships with nearly everyone in Lexington that's experiencing homelessness. And again, where we budget our money, where we put our resources, demonstrates our priorities as a community. We need to make sure that they have added staff, added resources, because when you only have 2 people on staff, it's hard to go out, talk to everyone, and see what people's needs are. And too often times, the first interaction is with law enforcement for what's maybe not primarily a criminal act or a criminal issue. We need to make sure that we have added mental health resources, addiction resources, workforce development opportunities, and make sure that we, as leaders on city council, break down the silos between the nonprofits that are doing this great work in our city and make sure that we're talking amongst one another to where the needs are, what needs are being communicated to us, and figure out how to best reach out to people to get them the help that they need.
And then we'll ask our final question before we move into the closing statements. After that, we'll talk about child care costs affecting many families across the state, but specifically here in Lexington. It's become a major issue for parents, especially during the pandemic and even after. What do you see as government's role in supporting families with child care or with children to afford child care? And we'll start with you, Candidate Lynch.
That is one of the issues that I've heard a few times as I've been canvassing here in the 2nd District and knocking on doors and engaging with my neighbors, is the lack of child care facilities in our district. I had not thought about that till when the neighbors brought it up, and then I kept hearing it again and again and again. And I think that the 2nd District is definitely a growing district. We are vastly changing. I've lived in this district for over 15 years, and it looks totally different than it looked when I first moved here. But I think that is something that we need. More child care centers, in addition to more restaurants and to more shopping opportunities in our district. One person said to me that I feel like we live in a commuter district because all of the businesses and restaurants are on the other side of town, and I want to change that. I think that we have a responsibility not only to have affordable child care, but we need to have access, especially here in the 2nd District, to all of the resources. One lady that I interacted with when I was canvassing one day, I will never forget what she told me. She told me that she and her family used to live in the Hamburg area and chose to move over to the 2nd District here because she was able to get more house for her money. And they were thinking about moving back because she missed the ease of shopping retail and stores that she had in Hamburg, because we don't have that here, and we have to have that here. We need that here. We're growing at such a fast rate residentially, and we're not keeping up commercially, and we need more of those opportunities, child care, daycare centers, and restaurants, and we definitely need another grocery store to be able to sustain, so that all families will have access to the needs that they have, so that we don't have to be a commuter community, but we have everything we need right outside our doorstep. So I think as a city council person, I will make strides to make sure that that happens here in the 2nd District.
And Candidate Gray, what do you see as the government's role in supporting families with children to afford child care here in Lexington?
In 2020, I was appointed by Governor Beshear to his Governor's Office of Early Childhood. Part of that office dealt with all things child care, from daycare, child care, and preschooling and all sorts of things. During the pandemic, everything went kapooey with our child care system. Many child care facilities went out of business due for various reasons. So we do have federal funding, which is there to help families afford child care. However, on the local level, it would be great if we could provide such a program, but I'm not sure how feasible that is with our current budget, but there's grant money out there for the city to find the funds for that. But more specifically in the 6th District, not necessarily with child care, we have an issue with the older children. And that goes back earlier to what I was saying about the lack of activities for our youth. And as we know, in the city of Lexington, we have had an uptick of youth-involved crimes. So everything, you put your money where your priorities are. And although we're talking about crime and the increase in violence and gun crime going on in our city, we see that our youth and avoiding these crimes and these incidences is not really a priority for the city. It seems to be more of mouth of talk rather than walk the walk. So once the budget is there to implement, to show that we have activities for youth, to catch the youth before they're out there committing these crimes, that's when we will see a change here in Lexington.
And Candidate Rowling, what do you see as the government's role in supporting families with children to afford child care?
Coming out of COVID, if you look at the workforce numbers that we have now, if you look at the unemployment numbers you have now, you see that in basically every demographic, those numbers have recovered. Every demographic except for one, and that's working age women. We talk about the new normal post-COVID. We cannot allow the new normal to be working age women not having a space in the workforce. And the problem is, they were the ones who were expected to come home when the children were out of the classroom and make sure that they're watching them over on the Chromebooks every day. They're the ones who have had trouble reintegrating in the workforce, and it's because there's a workforce crisis in the child care industry. It's sort of cyclical, and until you give women the opportunity to go back to work, then they feel like they need to be at home taking care of the children because then they can't afford the child care. I think it's the government's role to be a facilitator. Unless you're the size of Toyota, unless you're the size of UK Healthcare, you're not going to be able to bring child care in-house. But if you look at the commercial density that we have in the 6th District, whether it's along New Circle Road, whether it's in the Hamburg area, you see a lot of small businesses that need somebody to serve in that facilitator role. You need to say, what are your workforce needs? Where have you not been able to rehire people post-COVID? And what can we do as a community to bring these businesses together to say, here's the need. We know that these workers are out there. They haven't come back to the workforce post-COVID. What can we do as city government to help facilitate these child care centers, to bring people together, to communicate, and especially at the state level, we're starting to see more programs that bring these businesses together. So it's really a facilitator role that city government plays, and we need to make sure that businesses, the nonprofit sector, and the public sector are all talking.
And now we will transition to our closing statements of the evening from the candidates here on the stage here. And we'll start with Shayla Lynch to share your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson, for facilitating a very engaging forum. I really appreciate your questions. And thank you to the forum sponsors as well for hosting this tonight. And thank you again for the invitation. You may wonder why I'm wearing my tennis shoes. And I'm wearing them because I'm a runner. I love to run. But we got work to do. We have a lot of work to do to make our city the city that it needs to be for everyone, equitably for everyone. And that's what I want to do through service, advocacy, and partnership. I'm originally from Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and my parents instilled in me the importance of serving and giving back to your community. And that's what I desire to do on city council. I want to work with my neighbors and advocate for you all and work with you all and partner because, as I said earlier, this job cannot be done by one person. It's got to be done by all of us, coming to the table with ideas, with input, with solutions, with creative solutions that will address the needs not only in our 2nd district, but in our city as a whole. I have enjoyed engaging with my neighbors and canvassing, and I want to invite you all to engage with my campaign as well because I can't do it alone, and I would love for you to engage in my campaign. Please visit ShaylaForLex.com to join my campaign and to work with me and alongside me as well because I have some great ideas for the things that I want to see done here in the 2nd district. We're a rapidly growing district in this city. We have nothing but great potential. We're going to get a new school in our district as well. They just bought the land for that. So we're growing and changing, and I want to make sure that all of my neighbors have a voice in those decisions that are being made on the city level that are affecting them every day. So a vote for me is a seat at the table with me. I have a chair waiting on you at the table so that we can work together to make the decisions that need to be made for our district as a whole. So on November the 8th, when you select me as your city council person, know that you're signing up to work along with me and alongside me so we can get the things done that we need to get done for our district here in the 2nd and for the city. Thank you.
And candidate Denise Gray.
The 6th district has real issues. Our district is very diverse. We go from Mary Todd that has working class individuals. We have housing authority housing. We have trailer parks. But then we go to the most wealthy in Lexington. So we have diverse needs. And we need a leader in the 6th district who is willing to go out and meet with each of these different communities within our district. And that's what I've been doing since before I filed for office. I've been doing the work in our community without a title. And I will continue to do the work once elected as 6th District City Councilwoman. Because we deserve a leader in the 6th district who is not just running to run for office. We need a leader who knows our district and is willing to be the voice of our district. Over the past 2 years, the 6th district, we felt neglected. While knocking on doors, I've heard no one cares about us. When I was speaking with the residents in Mary Todd, I had individuals cry because no one had ever come to speak with them. That's got to change. We deserve a leader who will see all of our residents as equal and will care about all the needs of our district. And that's why I am the only candidate you should consider for the 6th district to represent us, because I am your voice and I'm ready to lead. But I do need your help canvassing. I just want to thank my mama over there. She has helped me knock on over 3,000 doors since August. I had planned to knock on all doors by the end of this month. I missed 3 precincts. So I need your help to get out there and get the word out. And the reception that I'm receiving is awesome. It's overwhelmingly awesome. And so I need your support. Come on out there with me and knock on doors and meet your neighbors. Thank you.
And we will have candidate Charlie Rowland as well give his 2-minute statement, closing statement.
Last Monday night, I was able to attend the prayer vigil in front of the courthouse downtown to end gun violence. And it was a powerful night. I don't think there's any underestimating the power of prayer. And to have so many people from our community, from all different backgrounds, together in one place. We haven't had the opportunity to do that over the past couple of years. And so it was great to see so many people out engaged in prayers, trying to lift up our community, particularly with the issue of gun violence. The remarks that stood out to me the most came from a rabbi at one of the local temples. He said, the problems we're dealing with, they're we problems. And the only way we're going to solve these problems is with we solutions. Whether that's gun violence, whether that's economic insecurity, whether that's addiction or mental illness. We're only going to solve these problems if we come together as a community. So I realize we're here tonight for political reasons, but it's a privilege to share the stage with other candidates. It's a privilege to share the room with you all because I know that you're engaged. I know that you want to see a better Lexington, and I know that you want to work on these we problems. So I think that I have the background. I think that I have the experience to really make a difference. I'd love to use my experience at the Attorney General's office to help guide public safety. I would love to use my experience at economic development to create good paying jobs for everyone in our community. So I'd appreciate your support, but don't give up. Keep working together. Keep going to events like this, and let's all come together as a community to work for a better Lexington. Thanks.
Hey, let's give a big round of applause to our District 2 and District 6 candidates, Shayla Lynch, Denise Gray, and Charlie Rowland. And they all will be on the ballot on November the 8th coming up this year. And we're not done yet. We've got a little bit more to go. We'll be hearing from our District 1 candidates. So we'll let our current candidates here exit the stage, and you all can be able to interact and mingle with them if you'd like. And we also have some information we want to pass along and share with you about outside in the lobby. There is a table with information from the candidates that you have been hearing from, but also that will be also speaking this evening. And you can also stop by and talk with the candidates individually if you like, before they head out. Also, the ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Beta Gamma Omega chapter, they're in the lobby assisting with voter registration. The deadline to register is October the 11th. And if you haven't registered, you still have plenty of time to do that. Just look for the ladies that are wearing pink and green, and they will get you signed up today. Excuse me. Also, we also have several sponsors that are participating, and we want to give them a big recognition this evening for tonight. There's two other forums that will be happening in October. The sponsors are the Black Faith Leaders of Lexington and Vicente and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Beta Gamma Omega Chapter, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Alpha Beta Lambda Chapter, the Center for Prophetic Activism, the Kentucky Community Action Council, also Civic Lex, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, and the John Rowe Chapter of the National Bar Association. And again, we'll get started here in just a few short moments. And again, I wish to remind you, if you didn't hear at the beginning, I'm Mario Anderson. I'm with Spectrum News 1, and I'm one of our news anchors, and I am our morning anchor and host a morning show that starts at 5 a.m. Eastern Time. So hopefully, if you do have Spectrum Cable, you tune in to be able to watch that. And if not, you can also kind of watch online at spectrumnews1.com, and you can connect with me on social media. And again, as we've been mentioning, we've got our first district candidates that are literally walking on stage as they were participating in a forum right before this one. And we'll be getting started in just a few short moments with a conversation with them discussing various topics and issues here in Lexington. So we'll take maybe just a short couple of minute break. Sherelle says no, we'll keep the party going. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. And at this time, we'd actually like to go ahead and welcome our first district city council candidates, Rasan Berry and Tana Fogel. And we're going to review the rules for those who may be just now joining us. The questions for the forum will cover a variety of issues, including community safety, city land use policies, minority business development, and housing affordability. We'll also cover several other topics based off of the conversation that we had with the candidates here. We'll bring those up with them and get their comments on that, positions. And the questions have not been provided to the candidates in advance, but they've been talking about these issues for several weeks and months as they've been campaigning to become the next council representative for the 1st District. And also, we're going to give the candidates each a 2-minute opening statement and then also a 2-minute closing statement. And then during the forum, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. And then all the candidates on the panel will be asked to answer the same question before another question is asked between them. And then finally, as well, depending on the flow of the conversation and the topic and the issues, we will do follow-up questions to one or both of the candidates during the initial answer period. And then again, at the end of this particular forum, the candidates will be given that closing statement, and depending on the time that we have allotted, we'll see if there may be an opportunity. If they have a question for each other, we may go down that route, but we'll see how that conversation goes. So candidates, are you all ready to start the forum? All right. So we'll start with a topic that we asked the first set of candidates that were with us earlier, and it's a topic that has been discussed in many circles, but many groups across the city, and it's the topic of public safety, crime, gun violence. And last night, we discussed this with the people. What was that? That's right. I was making sure you're all paying attention, so good job. We had our first person that understood the rules earlier. So yes, before we get into those official questions, we're going to let the candidates provide their 2-minute opening statement. And we'll first start with Rashawn. It's right in front of me here, and you have 2 minutes to share your opening statement for the people here in the room this evening.
Well, it's good to be in the house of the Lord just one more time. That's number one. Thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate all that you continue to do. We just left a forum just about 5 or 10 minutes ago, but we're here and we're ready to prepare ourselves to present ourselves to you. My name is Rashawn Berry, and I'm running to be your next 1st District Council. I am a native of Lexington. I have 3 kids, 5 grandkids. I have a BS in criminal justice and a master's degree in public administration with an emphasis in government policy. I am the proud son of Ulysses Berry and Marion Berry. And they were all public servants during their career or what they did. I have served you for the last 25 and a half years as local law enforcement, as the police department. But what I'm most proud of is I got to spend half of my career, almost half of my career, serving under my father. He served 41 years in the police department. And during that time when I was young, he was over the community service section. So he allowed me to come and volunteer a lot. And he did the drug-free days in the housing authorities all over the city. So he taught me the importance of taking care of people, neighbors, and building community partners. And that's number one. So now, me going forward, I'm over the community service section of the police department, where I'm over Safety City, the DARE program, Citizen Police Academy, the Police Activities League, and I started the We Care program, which consists of church in the park and jazz in the park. So now I'm ready to take off my police suit and peep on my business suit so we can go down to City Hall and I can support you on 3 important topics: public safety, neighborhood preservation, and small business development. So thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate it.
And candidate Vogel, you have 2 minutes.
First of all honor to God, who is truly the head of my life. Thank you for having me here. You guys look like you in church because we all sit in the back as the preacher's trying to preach. But I am a native of Lexington. I was born and raised in the 1st District, Short Street, Charlotte Court, Aspendale. I go all the way around. I even lived in Wimburn. So I know a little bit about Bracktown. I know the Sleets that used to live here and the Higgins that used to live here. Thank you for letting me be here. You know, my life is not a Hallmark card or a TikTok video. I fell off the yellow brick road, but it took each and every one of you, the community. Y'all prayed me back in here, and you made the person that I am today. I would be remiss if I didn't lift up Charlie Givens, from the Salvation Army. He had a program, him and the micro city government had a program that they ran that developed young adults. You all know that we're getting ready to talk about a topic, gun violence and crime in Lexington. But if we don't go back to the drawing board, if we don't go back to the old school, then we are going to be lost. So I'm a mother of 2, a grandmother of 11, and a great-grandmother of 4. That's the community in itself. So I am so happy to be here. I want you all to know that I'm going to work hard. I need your vote on November the 8th. I want to say that at the beginning and the end of this session. And so I look forward to working with community. I look forward to listening to community. I am community. My strongest suit is that I'm an advocate. I build relationships. I have built relationships in the 1st District for over 35 years. My strongest component is I register voters. I take the least of these, Matthew 25, and I raise them to the top. Those people who have been to jail, who have served their time, and has been discarded from the use of voting, I work tirelessly on restoration of voting rights. That's part of community. Thank you for having me. I can't wait to start this forum. Y'all can clap.
All right, so we will start now with the official questions since the candidates gave their opening statement. And again, we will start with the topic of public safety here in the city of Lexington. And we'd like to hear from each candidate about what some strategies you have in mind to implement to make Lexington safer, especially after the Lexington experienced its 5th police officer-involved shooting just last night, which is the 3rd this month. And then over the weekend, Lexington tied its homicide record with 37 people sadly being killed at this point in our city. So what are some strategies you would implement to make Lexington safer? And we'll start first with candidate Barry.
As you know, I've been serving you as the last 25 years as a local police officer. So in 2014, there was a tragic shooting in Douglas Park. It shut the park down for months. Dirtbo quit. People didn't come back. The West End just kind of shut down. So the chief of police at that time asked me, he said, I need you to go and try to fix it or do anything you kind of do to try to get the neighborhood revived. So, you know, I thought to myself, well, what can I do? What can I do? What are some things that I need to do? So it starts with the community. You know, so I had a task force of about 6 officers, and we walked each and every street. We talked to neighbors. We got people excited about talking to us, giving information. You know, we kind of went up and down the street and just made those relationships with folks, and that's what it takes. So they knew you. They trusted us. They gave us information. They allowed us to come in their homes, on their porches, and divulge information to us. And that was number 1. So then after that, I said, you know what can we do? So I reached out to all the faith-based leaders in the city. I said, you know what? Let's have church in the park. Let's do this every Tuesday and Thursday from 6 to 7. They came out and they had services. And we've been doing that ever since 2014. And we continue to do it. So then Dirtbo came back in the fold. People stopped coming back to the park. So I said, you know, what's the next thing we can do? Well, let's have jazz in the park. Let's make people feel more comfortable. Because one thing people don't like is over-policing. I didn't want to flood everything with over-policing. That was number 1. But I wanted to depend on the community to know that we can do this together. And if we can't do it together, then we're lost. But we needed to do it together. That was important. And that's been successful ever since. Ever since then, there's been no more shootings in the park. People come and enjoy themselves, and they continue on doing the right thing as far as what they do in the park in the West End. So one of my strategies is the community, us working together, building those relationships, and having a stronger avenue and open communication so we can do things better. Thank you.
And candidate Fogel, will give you 2 minutes to share some strategies that you would implement to make Lexington safer.
First of all, prayer is everything, and then we put to action. We have got to cultivate a community and a collaboration of folks such as the Black faith leaders, mental health, folks in the community, our youth, One Lex, we have got to go to the drawing board. We have got to come to the table. A plan of action, listen. Lexington and 1st District does not look like other districts. Poverty is at the center of violence. When people are pushed in a corner and they're in survival mode, the plan of action, we have neighborhood associations. One of my plans of action is to formulate a task force, bring someone in from each neighborhood association to the table. You have to have impacted people. You cannot take it from the top down. You have to have people at the table. Everybody counts. We have to cultivate a society. Go back to the drawing board. Mr. Berry talked about relationships with police officers. When I was growing up, there was Philip Cigar, there was Omar Carherd. When they saw us out acting up, they took us home. They knew my mother, they knew my grandmother, they knew my brothers and sisters. That is police accountability, and that's growing a relationship. When you talk about community policing, it's not just in word, it is in action. So if you have a police in your community, I'm gonna tell you something. St. Martin Village has one of the best models that I know. They have team captains. They check on the elderly. If there's a car in the community that they don't know, they're on the phone calling each other. Do you have somebody in your family that's visiting? Oh, well, we better call the police, not the 911, but let's check this out. So let's go back to the drawing board. That's a plan of action. Let's get everybody to the table, and let's hear what it's going to take until we come out of poverty, until people have a living wage, until people don't have to guess about if they're going to pay for gas, buy food, or buy the copay for their medication. Until we rise above that, you will see criminal activity continue to happen. My heart goes out for the victim as well as the officer from last night and all of the 38 murders that we've seen, 13 in the 1st District.
There's been a lot of discussion about the topic of group violence intervention, or GVI, and whether or not that type of initiative does enough to address the root causes of violence. Current city council members have been discussing this for months, but also the police department has spoken about this as well. So what are your thoughts on this type of program and whether it should be implemented in the city of Lexington? And we'll start first with you, candidate Berry. You've got 2 minutes.
Well, like I said, it starts with us, the community. We need to reach out to each other and come up with some solutions. I want to be the bridge between the police department and the community, and I think I have proven that during my years of service. I think my family has proven that during my years of service. I think if we come up together and find solutions to it so we can reach out to each other and try to solve problems, that would be the perfect fit. We've got to sit down and realize that we got to get in the streets and talk to these young men and women who are doing these crimes. You know, there's a lot of mentoring programs out there that we need to support. You know, I just left a nonprofit coalition over there. We talked about supporting them because the city can't do it all. So we need to invest in some of those nonprofits so they can continue on helping us do some of the things that we can't do as a city and as an organization. But we, as a community, we have to come together. It's very important that if we don't have the know-how and the knowledge to do it, then we won't get things solved. So, please, once again, we have to support our neighbors. We have to know each other. We have to create those relationships and barriers so we can get things done. Thank you.
And candidate Berry, do you support the GVI initiative at all, or is that something that you want to see more information about?
Well, I believe one thing is that we are GVI, the people. We can figure this out. I did it once before in the park. There's been no shootings. There's been no type of instances. But what I did was I reached out to community, our leaders in the community. Like I said before, faith-based, different institution. We brought resources into the park. We did everything we can. And there's never been any more situations and fatalities in that park at all. So I think we are the GVI. We, the people, we can figure this out together.
And Candidate Fogel, will give you 2 minutes to share your thoughts on the GVI, Group Violence Intervention Program, and whether you think it should be implemented in the city of Lexington.
I do support GVI. I believe that it should have been implemented 5 years ago. It has been a proven fact that if you take the size of Lexington and you look at other states with the same size of population, it has worked. The mayor has missed the mark on this one. I don't have a problem stating that out loud. And GVI is old school. It is community taking care of community. The group violence intervention, we desperately need that here. I wish I could say to you all that music stops gun violence. Maybe it does in some areas, but 38 murders proves that somebody's not listening to music in Lexington. This is a serious situation. There has to be a plan of action that is taken. GVI, how do we know it won't work if we don't try it? So we already know that the faith leaders have started. We had a group called Men of Action. Men of Action, we have one Lex who gathers 200 men down at the Lyric, and they do their man cave thing. You know, I haven't been privy to go to that one. I'm pretty sure that I'm not X'd out of it, but I do view the men as the head of the household, and we need that back. We need those old school remedies. Parks and recreation, you have to open these parks. When I was a young girl a long time ago, we had Porter Eubanks at the YMCA. We had Charlie Givens at the Salvation Army. We had Jackie French in the parks. We had Parks and Recreation. We had micro city government that taught people how to work, accountability. Underneath of one of my bullet points, one of my platforms is livability. How do you live? Accountability by the police is part of that. And so the police have to be accountable. That's written within the GVI as we work with different groups. As I listen and I hear, you cannot X out the youth because they are our future.
Well, Lexington Police has stated on multiple occasions that domestic violence has also been highlighted as a cause of recent violence and murders in Lexington. So as a council person, what would you do to support domestic violence victims here in the city of Lexington? And we'll start first with candidate Tana Fogel.
One thing I would do would be increase funding. The domestic violence unit does not have enough money. We have been in our homes with COVID for 2 years. There's so much trauma in our community that when a person is murdered or when there's domestic violence, it's not only the family that suffers, the community suffers. So we're dealing with trauma all the way around. Domestic violence has got to be funded. Domestic violence leads into mental health. Mental health leads into insecurities around the community and around the homes. Greenhouse 17 does a good job, but we don't have enough Greenhouse 17s. Churches and leaders in churches and pastors in churches that counsels families and men and women, and I'm not going to put this on men because there's some domestic violence women too. They have to have a place to spew out. At the bottom of this is the root causes. I have to go back to poverty, living wages, and the ability to take care of one's home. Anything can trigger a person to snap. and act out with domestic violence. We've got to fund it. We've got to have more counselors. And as a first district council person, I will be in every office of the council promoting and advocating more funding for domestic violence.
And Candidate Berry.
Absolutely. Dealing with domestic violence is it's a horrible, horrific situation for individuals. A lot of times when we go on scenes, it's hard because we have to control the scene. So one thing that I would love, and it's our office, because I call it our because I will be representing you, the people, is that I think we need more social workers to go along with us while we, as police officers, so they can help us identify some of these situations. That's number one. It's important for us to do that because lots of times there's so many forms and things that we can't recognize, and don't get me wrong, we're well trained, first of all, but the social workers would help us kind of identify if this person needs some help. So in doing that, then we need to reach out with other nonprofit organizations to help us go along if we can call so they can give resources as well. That's important. So domestic violence is a serious and an effectual situation that we need to clarify and get the help that we need to help those in that situation. Thank you.
In Lexington, there is a wide range of issues related to poverty and people experiencing low income. And also there's a wide range of expensive neighborhoods with people having to struggle with paying rent or mortgages due to their issues with poverty and affecting families, education, employment opportunities. Share with us one or two ways that you plan to address poverty within the city if you're elected, and we'll start with you, Candidate Berry.
Well, our office would definitely sit down with the new homeless situation prevention and the housing situation. I know we talk about affordable housing and homelessness, which is a big issue in our community. We need to embrace and come and talk to the community members as well and invite them in to know what are the situations they're leading to. I think it's important that we have that simple change so they can call and make it easy so that when they need help or if they need something that they need, it'll be a simple call to get those resources that they need. So like I said before, if it's nonprofits, if the city, because we can't do it all, the city can't do it all, that's number one. So get those nonprofits coming in to help us that we can continue to get those wraparound services to help with the homeless problem and affordable housing as well. I myself have taken initiatives with affordable housing. Most of the rental property that I have, I rent at an affordable rate. That's number one. Because I want the families who rent from me to one day have an opportunity to be homeowners. And I think that's important. Because lots of times it's so high now, they can't even afford to live. But I have talked to the new Housing Commission about how can we make it easier for people when they're looking for homes. I just left another form. I just got a call, somebody who wanted a home. So what I'm going to do now is connect them to the new Housing Commission tomorrow so we can find a home for them to live in to make it affordable. So that's how it works. We need to be more accessible and open so they'll know they can rely on us when they need homes to find and make it affordable for them.
And Candidate Fogle, share with us one or two ways that you would plan to address poverty within the city of Lexington if you were elected.
It's just such a hard subject to talk about because I see it every day. In 1 month, 400 people were evicted from their homes. To address poverty, you have to address the systematic systems that we live in. We have got to tear down some of these systems that are already in place. Because in First District, poverty looks different than it does across the south side of Main Street. When you're talking about poverty, and you're talking about affordable housing, you have to start with the definition of affordability, because our neighborhoods have been so gentrified and turned into Airbnbs, and folks who are not accepting any kind of housing vouchers and tripling the rent. What used to be, when we all heard that, oh, they're gonna raise minimum wage to $15. Well, inflation hit, so 15 is still 7. So when you're addressing poverty, it's gonna take the community. It's gonna take the food banks to help people eat and survive. Food insecurity. How can a person function? How can we tell our children to go to school, get a good education when they're hungry? To address poverty, I've got to listen. I don't have the answer. Each and every one of us have got to be at the table that we are going to build together, and then we're going to come up with some solutions. I don't have the answer to this question. Every day, I watched my mother work 4 jobs, and she had 8 children, and we survived. We prayed, we believed, we had faith, and we wasn't afraid to ask for help. So it's going to take each and every one of us. I don't have the answer to what we can do. We can make a plan. That's the first thing. I can't do it without you. And when you send me downtown on November the 8th, I'm going to call on you. And I'm going to hold you accountable. Because if we don't take our community back, the government is not going to do it. If my mother could do it with 8, we can do it as a community. That's the plan. The plan to listen, the plan to plan, and the plan to take action. Meeting is meeting. Action is action.
And we'll continue the discussion on affordable housing as it affects many people across the city, but also in the districts that you are hoping to represent. When it comes to ensuring equitable development for historically marginalized groups, how will you make sure that developers don't price residents out of housing options if you're elected as a council member? And we'll start with you, candidate Berry.
First, you need to have the developers in the community meet together so we can come up with a plan. That's number one. If they don't know what's going on, then how can they stand up for themselves? So you got to have them informed at all times. They can't come through the back door, the side door, or whatever. You got to come through the front door and knowing what they're doing. So you get the information out to the community. You have to. Because a lot of times they don't know what's going on. They don't know when to do this or when to do that. But you've got to get the information out. So you get the developers, the community together, and you come up with a plan so we can all be comfortable for how we're going to live and how we're going to do it. Make them things accessible, make the development accessible for the people, affordable for the people, that they can live in a nice atmosphere, a trusting atmosphere, a safe atmosphere. So communication is the key. Getting them together, knowing the plan and how we make things affordable and accessible for them.
And candidate Fogle.
Can you repeat that question?
Yes. When it comes to ensuring equitable development for historically marginalized groups, how will you make sure developers don't price residents out of housing options?
It's too late. They've already priced us out. They priced us out and moved us out of our roots in our neighborhoods. The developers, what I'm disappointed about the city is that the developers, they didn't look within the city. The black minority business owners, you don't see too many black developers developing housing. The green space they've taken up. It was once a time there was a white flight movement in Lexington. White folks moved out to the suburbs because downtown was not thriving. And now they've built the developers have come in, don't even live in Kentucky, and they have bought land. They have been able to buy blocks up, and they have taken a once 2-bedroom straight back shack that rented for $425. It is now renting for $1,200. Same house on the same land, and there is not a cap. You guys live here. You're not blind. You see what's happening. So the developers have come in. They're out of control. So a person that has a 2-parent family, if we can find those, if someone is not incarcerated, if you are not making above $70,000, there is no affordable housing on the north side past Main Street and on the east side past Broadway. If you guys can still find affordable housing, I need to know what that magic touch is. And as soon as I take office, come down, let's have a conversation, and let's find this affordable housing within the 1st District.
And we'll ask a follow-up too about, do you support requiring affordable housing units from residential developers in exchange for zoning variances or tax abatement, or even offering tax credits? And we'll start first with candidate Berry. And again, do you support requiring affordable housing units from residential developers in exchange for zoning variances or even tax credits?
Well, first, I think you need to sit down and look at it from that perspective. Now, if it's going to help the community, I'm for it. But you got to have some policies and you have some regulations to do that. Because if you don't, then they'll just take advantage of the whole situation again. So I think that being smart and intentional about it and knowing what we need to do, and if it can help the community live in an affordable way, an affordable house, then it could be a good thing. Because like Ms. Fogel was saying, people are getting left out and displaced, and that's unacceptable. But we have to be intentional. We have to work together and know what is coming down the pipeline. So if we do that, then it allows us to know that we will have some affordable housing for people as we continue down that road. So yes, if it's important, if it's practical, and if it's good for people for affordability, then yes, we can do that.
And candidate Fogel, do you support requiring affordable housing units from residential developers in exchange for zoning variances or tax credits?
Let me make sure I get this question right. Do I support giving developers tax credit?
Correct.
Well, it seems like they're not paying any taxes anyway. So, from my perspective, the wealthy and the rich, I know that 1% of the wealthiest community, they don't really pay taxes. The taxes is put on the poor and the marginalized and on the back of tax-paying citizens that work minimum wage jobs or barely having their head above water. So I don't want to give developers any more breaks because they've got the breaks already. So I would have to say, to support giving developers tax breaks, I would say no. When they always move the boundaries and move the lines, and it just seems like everything goes toward the wealthiest people in Lexington. I am here to represent 1st District. Our wealth does not look like the wealth, once again, across the south side of town. There's 2 different wealths here that we're talking about. And so, no, to answer the question, I would not give tax breaks to the wealthiest people that's already in Lexington already.
Let's talk about the topic of social and racial justice in Lexington and Fayette County. What policies would you pursue to promote social and racial justice in the city if you were elected? And we'll start first with candidate Berry.
Well, first and foremost, we've got to do all we can do and break barriers. That's number one. I know we talked about root causes. You know, this thing's been going on for a long time. But we've got to come together and have those solutions so we can fight social injustices. Myself, you know, diversity and inclusion is number one and foremost. You know, people getting jobs, making it equitable for all folks. You have to do that. There's no cause about that. You know, looking into city government, looking into small businesses, looking into different corporations, you got to make it fair across the board. That's number one. You got to continue to do that. So all I can do in the office, in our office that we can do, we would work together with some of these organizations that reach out to some of these programs and make sure that things across the board are getting done. And if they're not getting done, then we need to change some policies from downtown and to look at some different avenues and ways that we can support it and make things fair and equitable and going across the board.
And Candidate Fogle, what policies would you pursue to promote social and racial justice in the Lexington and Fayette County area?
Some of the policies that I would take a look at would have to start in elementary. It has to start at the lowest level. We have to get more teachers that look like us in different places, in schools, in employment, and society statutes. In your job as an anchor at Spectrum, we need more people and we need more education surrounding social and racial justice. We have got to take the elephant out of the room. We have got to really get down and cultivate what people at Bryan Station and our students at Bryan Station that I work with, what they see as racial and social justice is what the media displays on TV. What they see is gun violence. What they see is death in First District. I don't know about you all, but I searched to see if the media will display some of the good things that's happening. Did you all know that there is a young youth black group, Rachel's House, and over to the Far House on 6th Street, they have dancers that come in to learn how to dance. They have groups like the BMW. I wish Man of Action was still in play. But, you know, we talk about One Lex, he's got his group, but there are so many more groups that is teaching racial justice. I am so proud to be a black woman today. I will be prouder when I watch Kimberly Beard be sworn in as the first black woman Commonwealth attorney and Angela Evans be sworn in as the county attorney. And on November the 8th, y'all can make it a trifecta and send Tana Fogle to the First District Council. We'll make it a trifecta. That's racial justice.
We'll also talk about another topic that affects many people across our city, and homelessness, and how to address the topic there and people that are experiencing that. What would you do as a council member to address homelessness in Lexington? And we'll start with candidate Barry.
Well, first of all, I think the Department of Homelessness down at the city, they have a new director. So they're going in some new steps in a new direction. So we need to get with them and talk about some of the programs and the different strategies that they need and that they're trying to implement. Second, we need to talk to any of the nonprofits, again, who are dealing with homelessness and different people that are in our community, just like the Catholic Action Center and some other places. So we need to, I guess, get at the table and think about all the strategies and to implement some of the procedures that we do to fight homelessness. And if that calls for more housing for them. And to be honest, every homeless person doesn't want a house. I understand that. You know, they don't want to be housed. But they need more resources, though. We have to bring more resources to the community so they know that we're there for them and that they can depend on us. And if we don't do that, then we'll just have an array of different people out, and it won't work. So more resources, better communication, and talking together will try to get things better for our homeless problem in Lexington.
And Candidate Fogel, what can you do as a council member to address homelessness here in Lexington?
Matthew 25. When did I see you homeless? When did I see you thirsty? When did I see you hungry? When you didn't do it to the least of these, you did it to me. When you do it to the least of these, you've done it unto me. When you didn't do it, you didn't do it unto me. That's scripture. But let me tell you about being vulnerable right now. As an impacted person, I've been homeless. I know what it's like to live in shelter with my son. There was a time in my life that I had to be homeless. This is a big problem. The Breeders' Cup is coming. They are going to erect housing across the street from the Fayette County Detention Center. I'm a part of that program. It's a winterization housing called Opportunity Village. But let me put you up on something. We had the opportunity in City Council to buy the Clarion on Richmond Road for $3.5 million. We had the money, but they turned down the project. This was bricks, 147 units. Folks could go in and live up to 2 years while we put wraparound services with mental health and other services. The faith leaders, I hope you got your letters because we were sending them out. But they're going to erect a temporary housing because the Breeder Cup is coming. They want to hide the homeless. Y'all remember when the equestrian games came? They did the same thing. And then after the games left, they tore the houses down. That is unacceptable. We need permanent housing. Yes, we have a housing shortage. But if you can erect housing because some horses is coming, you can keep up some housing when the horses leave. This is a serious situation. I go down on Elm and 3rd Street all summer long, taking water bottles, taking food, because folks are out in the sun and in the heat. How can we go to bed at night? How can City Council go to bed at night and pop up some housing because the horses are coming and then tear them down and folks are back outside? That is unacceptable to me. And as 1st District Council, I'm going to every office. I'm going to come and draw a table. We're going to sit at a table and we together will come up with a solution. I cannot do this by myself. I played for the University of Kentucky. There was no I, there was a we. It took all of us to beat Tennessee for the SEC championship. Let me just throw that in, commercial. And it's going to take all of us to make sure each and every person is housed. I don't know how we're going to do it, but if you guys would work with me, give me an opportunity to lead with your help, we can knock this homeless situation out. If they can build a dog park and take away Main Street Baptist Church parking, they can build some housing for the homeless population.
And let's talk about some business, minority-owned business discussion. What steps would you recommend Lexington to take to support minority-owned businesses and then do businesses with those companies at a higher rate? So we'll start first with Candidate Fogel on what steps you would recommend to support more minority-owned businesses here in our city.
So let's promote community ventures. Let's have more community ventures that pulls people in, and you go through class. The reason why I know this is because I took this avenue. You go through a class, they teach you how to write a business proposal, you become an entrepreneur, and then you start your own business. Minority businesses, they gave some money, the opera money, they gave some of the money to minority business, but it wasn't as much as they gave to the distillery company down on Manchester. So does human life really matter? And does Black lives matter? And does Black business owners matter? And why is it so difficult to start a business here in Lexington being of color? And when I say BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, It is time. It's those systematic systems that I talked about previously. We have got to tear down those systems. We have got to cultivate a new system. Everybody tugs on the leaders in churches, the pastors. They get tugged on. They're only one subset of a big picture. It really is going to take all of us. It's going to take nonprofits to join Black minority business. First, you got to see us. If you don't see us and you still consider us as chattel, 3/5 of a human being, if you don't see us, you're not going to work with us. Fund Black minority businesses.
And candidate Barry, will have you tell us as well, what steps would you recommend Lexington to take to support more minority-owned businesses?
First of all, my mom, she was a small business owner, and my family. She's been open for 55 years in the East End, and she continues to be open. My uncle on the other side of town, he's been open for 45 years. So it can be done, and I've seen it before because I've lived it, and that's important. We need to connect the Commerce of Lexington and the Small Business Administration together with some of these small businesses so they can get grants and affordable to help them out so they can get started with their business. It can be done. We can be intentional by doing this. And us as council downtown working together, we can create some policies and some things or some guidelines to help these small businesses as they go forward. Like I said before, our office, and I will use a champion for small businesses because I've been there. I'm going to use government TV. I'm going to highlight different situations so they know that we're there to support them. So yes, small businesses is successful and it can be done by getting them to the right relationships and making the right connections so they can be together. Thank you.
And we're going to allow the candidates to share their closing statements in a moment, but first we want to allow the candidates to ask one question of each other, if they have one. And we'll first start with candidate Fogel. Do you have a question at all for your opponent that you'd like him to answer this evening?
Okay. I'm going to read my question because I thought about it long and hard. There were so many questions that I wanted to ask. So, you talk about love for the community and building bridges. I feel the same way. I'm sure you chose to be a police officer because you thought you could help people. And I thank you for your service. And as a landlord, you have definitely seen our problems with affordable housing up close. I have also lived here my whole life and have experienced the challenges firsthand. I'm one that is affected in our community, so we use different words. Out of our goals are really the same. Our goals really are. Our main differences is how we achieve those goals. It seems to me the interests of the police and property owners are well represented in city council already. Why do you think a police officer such as yourself and landowner could be a better choice to achieve our common goals than an impacted person such as myself?
That's a good question. Well, I just think because I have a passion for it. You know, I could have chose to be in a lot of places, but I choose because I love this community. I love it. There's no other place where I would rather be within this community. I walk the streets. I feed the homeless. I work with the women of that have been with gun violence in different situations. I do that because I want to give back. I think it's in my DNA. You know, you talk about Micro City. You know, that was a pillar in our community. I'm the blueprint. I know how to do these things because I live them. My family has fought hard for the different rights, for different folks, for different places in this community, and I was a part of that as well. And now it's time for me to step up and step out. Now, I did what I was supposed to do as a police officer. It allowed me to raise my family, raise my kids, and to help out, and that was important. And my dad was my mentor. People know who he is, and he still knows from what he did in this community. And I'm a product of that. So, with your help and your support and your vote, I think I can represent you the same way that anybody else can do. Now, Ms. Fogel, I know she's passionate, and she does, and I respect her. All at UK when she played. But I'm as passionate as she is. And we both love this community. So that's why I think I'm a good candidate to be and represent you in the 1st District.
And Candidate Berry will also give you the opportunity to ask a question of your opponent if you have one. Do you have one question at all for Candidate Fogel?
Well, this is the first time I really thought about it. But I respect you, and I love what you do as an advocate. How would you respond day to day at different services that the constituents call each day to get things done?
Say that again.
How would you respond to them when they call you from different services to get things, the general purposes of things done each day to get things done?
Well, that is a great question. Thank you. I would respond like I do every day now. That's my life. People call on me 24 hours a day. People laugh at me that ride in my car because I'm always on the phone. Someone needs housing. Someone's kid is missing. Somebody needs picked up from a football game. In this position of running for 1st District, I've got to know how to pivot. I've got to know how to take care of myself. I've got to know how to call on my ancestors to give me strength to walk another day. I'm already living in 1st District. You can't ask for any more diversity and pivoting from a person each day. We wake up having to give service. Taking care of my children gives service. Teach a child. And when they grow up, they get to make choices. That's what happened to me. How do I serve? I listen. I come to the table. I stop talking, if you can imagine that. And I dig in. I care. I do not react. I respond. Contempt prior to investigation is a bad pill to swallow. So, I know my boundaries. I know I can't help everybody. But if I have you all locked arm in arm with me at the table, we can put a big dent in the 1st District. 1st District is beautiful. We deserve our parks to be open. We deserve a community center. We deserve the best government that I'm going to give you. We deserve that. We deserve media coverage on good things that's happening. We deserve our graveyards to look beautiful. Even tree leks. We deserve not to compete against each other, but to collaborate with each other. We deserve a healthy community where we can afford our medication, put gas in our car, and feed our family. We deserve livability that's police accountability, as well as watching our children grow in a safe community. We deserve to get speed bumps on Marcellus Drive that a 12-year-old told me if he could vote for me and I could get him those speed bumps, he would vote for me. We deserve that. We deserve to go back to the drawing board. We deserve to break down systems that are put in place. And we deserve our children to dream past the age of 22. That's what we deserve, and that's what I would do.
And we now allow the candidates to share their final closing statements before we wrap up this evening, and they each have 2 minutes to address everyone, and we'll start with candidate Berry first, and then candidate Fogel will be after.
Once again, thank you for allowing us to come today. I was a little rushed going from one event to another, but I'm used to that doing police work. Today you heard two different people that are compassionate about their neighborhoods. And I love that. You have two choices to make. You know, both of us love our people. We love our community. We love our streets. We will always want to do the things that are right and things that are, you know, that are important for our community. I think we both have the same ideas that's going on. The only difference between me and Ms. Fogel is just delivery. That's it. It's just delivery. But I respect this office, I respect my community, and I respect you. All I want to do is be accessible, dependable, and reliable for you. And I can do that. You can depend on me. I've done it for the last 25 and a half years as a local police officer. And not even as a police officer, off the board, I still do it. Because that's who I am, and that's what I'm going to be. So, Berry is number one on the ballot, and God bless you. Hopefully, I'm number one in your hearts. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight.
Candidate Fogel, you have 2 minutes.
First of all, I want to thank the Holy Spirit that filled me with the answers that I gave. They were already inside me, but the Holy Spirit allowed me to articulate them out. Second, I want to thank you all for coming. It's late in the night, and I thank you for staying here through the whole debate to listen to us. One thing I want you to know is that I will work hard for you. I'm going to work hard for my family, and I'm going to work hard for your family. The thing that I want you to leave here with is that it took a long time for us to get here. I'm not coming to solve the problem overnight. I can't do it. I have to keep saying this. I cannot do this alone. I need each and every one of you. My plan of action to start an advisory board with a member from each neighborhood association. I can't make it to all those neighborhood associations. I've got to be down voting on some ideas. One thing, we need to change the time of city council meetings so the people that it reflects, the working person, can get down to the city council meeting. They make decisions for us because we can't get to the meeting to oppose something that they're putting out or to agree with it. So I want you to remember Fogel at the ballot on November the 8th. I want you to remember that I did not come here alone. I'm not going to leave alone. That Miss Davis that lives in Matador that has a hole in her ceiling, that matters to me. Mason, who lives on Marcellus, that needs speed bumps, that matters to me. The black faith leaders that continue to fight for the GVI, that matters to me. Homeless populations that live on 3rd and M and around your city, that matters to me. Each and every item matters to me because none of us are safe if everyone that we look at is hungry, if they need housing. We're a community. I need each and every one of you. I need the Phillips cigars to come back. I need to know the police officers. Not over-policing, but really build a community. I am a community relationship builder. I have been in this position. I have not worked a day in my life because I enjoy what I do. Vote Fogel, November the 8th. Number 2 on the ballot. But your best candidate sitting up here on stage.
And let's have a big round of applause for our 1st District City Council candidates, Rasan Berry and Tana Fogel. And that is the end of our forum tonight. This evening, we want to remind everyone that the early voting begins on November the 5th and runs to the 8th. And the deadline for voter registration is October the 11th. And remember that you can register to vote actually in the lobby back there when you first entered the church here. And also, please mark your calendars for October the 13th for the Kentucky House of Representatives debate. And that will be actually right here at Bracktown at 6 p.m., once again on October the 13th. And also save the date for October the 27th for the Fayette Judicial Forum at the Lyric Theater at 6 p.m. And again, we appreciate everyone for coming out tonight, and we'll see you again on October the 13th, or if you tune in tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., you'll see me on Spectrum News 1. Have a great night, everybody.
Spectrum News 1!